This video is for the lesson 5.7 homework. We're going to start though with setting our calculators up. All the trig ratios are programmed into your calculator, but you have to change your calculator from radians to degrees. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now. When we get into circles, you'll see the difference, but we're dealing with degrees. Everything on this page, 75 degrees, 72 degrees, 24 degrees. So we need the calculator in that mode. So in your calculator, see if I can get everything to fit on one screen here. Okay, I'm gonna clear out, and I'm gonna press dock. Oh, I can't do it till I'm in the calculator page. Okay, so you have to open a calculator page. And then dock 7 and 2. And then right here where it says angle, yours may say radian. Just make sure that's changed to degree. Okay, so on a calculator page, dock 7, 2. And then where it says angle, make sure it says degree. If it says something different, change it to degree and then hit OK. Otherwise, your ratios will be off. Okay? All right. So everything we're going to do today, again, the calculator is going to do all the heavy lifting. Oh my goodness, that's blurry. All right. So the first half of this page, we're just going to practice typing these in and where to find these keys on the calculator. So the first one says the tangent of 75. So in your calculator, so right under the control key, you'll see a little key that says trig. If you click that, all of those ratios pop up. So we need tangent. There's a difference between tan and tan to the -1. We'll mess with this one tomorrow. So just make sure you click just the tan one. And then in the parentheses, you just type the degree. Don't have to put a degree sign, just the number. Hit enter, and this one says we're rounding our answers to the nearest hundredth. 2 numbers after the decimal. So this one would be 3.73. Not too bad, right? Could be worse. Cosine. Same exact process. Press that trig button, find the cosine, and then you just type the number in. 13. 2 decimals. 2 numbers after the decimals. So 0.97. So watch your rounding. Those are easy. So what that is, what that number is, it's the ratio between the two sides. So cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So if I had those actual measurements and I stacked them up like that, adjacent side over the hypotenuse side, that's the number I would get if I would divide those. Okay? So now we're going to find the missing side lengths. Okay? You got to determine what side you're looking for before you do anything else. So here's the right angle. Here's the other 2 angles. I'm looking for the hypotenuse. Okay, that side's the hypotenuse. Here's the angle they gave me. So now I have to decide if the other number they gave me, is that an adjacent side or an opposite side? So this down here, adjacent or opposite? Adjacent. So if I have an A and an H, so again, your little mnemonic phrase, so, ga, toa. If I have an adjacent and a hypotenuse, I'm doing cosine. Okay. How we write that? It's the cosine of an angle equals the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. That's how the equation looks. Now we fill in what we know. So again, this little symbol, the theta, that's your degree. So this is the cosine of 72 equals the adjacent is 6, the hypotenuse is x. I am going to solve these by hand, but I will show you a shortcut. Okay? I am not used to using menu 3-1 on these. I don't trust it all the time, so I just want you to have a general idea of how these would be solved. Okay. So I need to get x by itself. You guys haven't seen a lot of equations like this where x is on the bottom. If x is on the bottom, the only thing I can do is multiply both sides by x. So I'm going to multiply this side by x and this side by x. And that'll cancel out that bottom piece. So now I have x times the cosine of 72 equals 6. To get x by itself, I divide both sides by the cosine of 72. So this side gets divided by it, this side gets divided by it. And so my final would be this. Okay? Menu 3-1 for what I have worked has worked. You should be able to, in menu 3-1, put this in. Okay? So cosine of 72 equals 6 over x, and then comma x. Should work. Okay? Should give me the same as this. If I do 6 over cosine of 72, gives me the same answer. For what I've worked, menu 3-1 has worked. It's been accurate. Okay? I'm not used to using it, so I don't trust it just because I'm not used to using it. So I'm okay with it, but understand if a problem's wrong, there could be little quirks. This one says round to the nearest tenth. So this one would be 19.4. So that's the length of the hypotenuse. So that ratio that I've been talking about. Okay? So again, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is 6 over 19.4. That should be equal to the cosine of 72 degrees. It's a ratio. And so if I do it either way, cosine of 72 should give me the same thing as 6 divided by 19.4. Pretty close. Okay? So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about these trig ratios. Okay? You can take two sides, and the ratio between those two sides will give you the angle measure. Or the angle measure will tell you what that ratio should be. Okay? It's a pattern. Everything's a pattern. That's about as deep as we're going to get into this stuff. So if you can remember the pattern, you're good to go. All right. 7. So we're looking for x. So here's the right angle. Here's the other angle. Here's the other angle, which means this is the hypotenuse. I always eliminate the hypotenuse before I do anything else. Okay? Here's the angle we're looking for. So we need to decide which is opposite, which is adjacent. So 14, opposite or adjacent? Opposite, which means this is adjacent. I have an opposite and I'm looking for an adjacent. I'm not using the hypotenuse at all. Okay, so our little mnemonic phrase, opposite and adjacent, that's tangent. So, I know which ratio I'm using, tangent. Use the angle measure, 49 degrees, and then opposite over adjacent. Opposite is 14, adjacent is x. If you can get it set up, okay, the calculator will do the rest. So we should be able to do menu 3-1, and then we can do tangent of 49 equals 14 over x, comma x, and then we're rounding. So one number after the decimal on these. And again, that's the length of this side. Okay, so what we're finding on this page, we're finding the length of the missing sides. From here, you can find the other side. What would I use to find the length of the hypotenuse on this one? Okay, what we started this unit off with, because it's a right triangle. Our missing side is the C. I could plug these two numbers in now that I know them. 14 squared plus 12.2 squared equals C squared. And then I could square root that amount. So I know the third and final side too. If you know two sides of a right triangle, you can find the third one. We're going to need all three sides because now we're going to find the perimeter. Perimeter is the distance it takes to walk around a shape. They've only given me one side and one angle. So here's the right angle. Here's the other two angles. So this is my hypotenuse. And then this is the angle they give me right here. So is 29 an opposite or an adjacent? Opposite. I've got two options here. I can use the trig ratios to find the other two sides. I can use the trig ratios to find one side and then use Pythagorean, and then I can add them all up. Whatever works best for you. Okay? So let's use the trig ratios since that's kind of what we're doing. All right, if I know the opposite side and I'm looking for the adjacent side, O and an A, that's TOA. So the tangent of 55 is the opposite 29 over the adjacent. We'll just make it an X. Okay? Again, if you can write the equation, the calculator will do the hard stuff for you. So tangent of 55 equals 29 over X, comma X. We're rounding to the nearest tenth. That's your final answer. Best rule of thumb is go one more decimal place until the very end. So that means my adjacent side, this side right here, I would say is 20.31. That's the length of this side. I could use Pythagorean theorem because this is a hypotenuse, 29 squared plus 20.31 squared equals C squared, and I could find this side. Or I can use a trig ratio. Opposite and hypotenuse is sine. Okay. So I could say the sine of 55. So just by changing that trig ratio, I can find another missing side. And it's opposite, which is 29. And then over the hypotenuse, I'm just going to use an H for the hypotenuse. It doesn't matter what letter you use as long as you've got it straight in your head. So menu 3-1, sine of 55 equals 29. And I can put an H there. Calculator don't care. As long as whatever letter I use, comma H, comma whatever letter at the end. And so this hypotenuse is 35.40. Final step is the perimeter. Add all three sides. And I get 84.7. Because remember, final answer rounded to the 10th. If I found the hypotenuse this way, let's see how close it is. And then I would square root that. 35.40, spot on. Okay, so it should be okay either method that you choose. Okay, take your time, go slow, use the trig ratios. You start getting twisted, you ask, you let me help you. Okay, because it's really easy to start labeling the sides wrong and all that stuff. Okay, so this is your assignment. First thing that I need you to do